And next, to multilateralism, with two people who know more about the convergence of technology and governance than most of us. They also happen to be two of the tallest participants in this forum. Let me first call up my colleague and friend, Gerald Butts, Vice Chairman of Eurasia Group. He's going to moderate a conversation with Amandeep Singh Gill, Undersecretary General and Special Envoy for Digital and Emerging Technologies at the United Nations.
So I want to pick up where Marty left off. He said that every country is different. Sounds like a good working motto for the UN. How do you see the UN's role in all of this?
As a facilitator, Jerry, I don't think this is a technology that calls for or requires a top-down governance approach. It requires a horizontal, connecting type of an approach, and the UN is the ideal place for that. 193 countries, big and small, rich and poor, different stages of infrastructure, demands, needs. And also, the UN embodies a corpus of international understandings, international norms, human rights, sustainable development, respect across genders. So we can connect this great technology, its great promise, to that corpus of international understandings. That's taken us centuries to build. So I see the UN as the inclusive connector, facilitator on artificial intelligence.
And how's it going so far?
Going very well. So, to the surprise of many of us within the UN as well, there is good momentum. Building on the work that was done by many in this room. I see Natasha, Phil, Omar has left us, so a multi-stakeholder reflection on what this technology means, the high-level advisory body on AI, its 7 recommendations, which is like a blueprint for how to get this technology right. The leaders came together last year at the through the Global Digital Compact and agreed on a few things. So, and surprisingly, again, for the UN, we moved with speed on those, so setting up of the International Independent Scientific Panel on AI, the Global Governance Dialogue to be held annually in Geneva and in New York, and a critical piece, which is the capacity piece. Brad was talking about that. There is the energy divide. 700 million people don't have access to energy, the internet connectivity divide. And on top of that, we have the data and AI divide. 1% of data center capacity in Africa. This morning, we were discussing investments in energy. 1% of private equity flows only to Africa, right. Much more. So how do we bridge that so that there's absorptive capacity? So even if you believe in a kind of like trickle down, pipe it down type of an approach, I'm a skeptic about that, by the way. But even if you believe in that, you need absorption capacity. And that's simply not there in most of the world. So those are the 3 pieces that are moving well in the United Nations. And now we need to implement. UA is the example where vision meets implementation. It's a great vision, great framework, need to implement.
Well, and I think what's unique, at least in my experience with the onset of AI as a revolutionary technology, is that often revolutionary technologies will overwhelm efforts to contain, shape, manage, spread its benefits and mitigate its downsides. But here we have the major stakeholders, some of the biggest private sector players, governments, engaging in a good faith effort to try and ensure ahead of time, before the technology really is disseminated, that it serves its highest, best use. First, do you agree with that, and how do you see the early stages of that unfolding?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a narrow window of opportunity to put in place some anticipatory governance, anticipatory capacity to land this technology so that we maximize the benefits. And I think, like sitting in UAE, you see, this is moving well. Omar led the way. 7 years ago, he was the first AI intelligence minister. Now, Canada has a minister for artificial intelligence. So I think we need to move fast in different regions and in a multi-stakeholder fashion. So governments, private sector, academia and the scientific community need to work together. And we spoke about this top-down, trickle-down approach, but then the real impact is closer to the communities. I was in India recently in my home state, some incredible startups doing great work in AI. But then, you need to connect the dots in terms of access to databases, which often sit with public sector authorities, use cases which are with local governments, and bring the cross-disciplinary, cross-sector perspective to the applications of AI.
So when you think about this development curve and the anticipatory cycle that we were just describing, there are a lot of people who are fearful that AI will multiply our problems rather than help us find the solutions. Project yourself forward 10 years. What is the best case outcome in your mind, and what are you worried about?
I think the most worrying is the reinforcement of inequalities, so the wealth divide, the access divide, and that's, by the way, not just across countries, it's within societies as well. There'll be winners and losers, and the public sector capacity to support the losers today, the potential losers, is limited. So I see that as the biggest challenge going forward, in terms of jobs being displaced or the reskilling that's required to, better fit people to new opportunities. The other concern is the sudden power shifts, and you can give it different names: misinformation, disinformation, manipulation, etc. But you could have disruptive power effects that can again impact political systems, rule of law, and even international relations. And finally, I would say, this is really a powerful technology that simulates human behavior. And it can have unpredictable second order, third order consequences. So societal relationships, how as humans we relate to each other's, the cultural impact of this technology. Those are the things that I worry about the most. And again, the answer to that is wise governance, wise adoption, trust, and being better prepared in a sense in terms of what's coming around the corner. So the importance of the scientific panel, regular assessments, thematic reports, the importance of the dialogue, because that can give you some early warning signs about this is not working well in a certain jurisdiction, or on the contrary, something's working well and we need to adapt it in other places. And finally, the capacity without which government ministers won't be able to craft the right answers, the researchers in universities won't be able to come up with, even if they are adapting models developed elsewhere, they won't be able to land them in good outcomes.
So I think you anticipated my next question, and I'm a homer. I'm from Canada. I'm a Canadian, and there are a lot of policymakers in the room, including one of my fellow citizens, the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith. You talk to a lot of policymakers all the time. How do you tell them to prepare for this? And how do you tell them to talk their populations through it?
I think in a lot of places I've seen leaders taking interest in AI. I know leaders personally who've spent 1 hour, 2 hours one-on-one with AI developers. They need to understand what this is, what this requires, what it implies. And then senior officials in governments need to be educated, need to be provided the capacity to, again, come up with the wise answers. I think that's an important starting point. And then we need the talent development across domains. So it's not just computer science or great maths. I'm an engineer, I love this technology and what it means, but then you need the perspective of public health specialists, the agricultural scientists, etc. AI is quintessentially cross-domain.
Right.
It's horizontal, cuts across domains. So I think that should be the second priority in terms of talent development, understanding, skilling. Then of course, infrastructure. In the Secretary General's report on innovative financing options for AI capacity building, we've underlined the need for a minimum national capacity, especially in the 80, 90 countries that have virtually nothing today. So single-digit megawatt data centers, a bare minimum of talent, even if it's 20 to 50 experts. Some use cases in agriculture, health, education, and environment, and the right policy framework. So in order of magnitude, I would list these as the most important steps that need to be taken by governments everywhere. Because I'm at the UN, I think, and often, we hear this debate about competition, who's ahead. Sometimes people apply these metaphors from the past.
Right.
But I think we are going to be surprised that this technology is going to require a lot of cross-border collaboration. Innovations can come from anywhere, and open source AI is humbling us all. Some very smart engineers who are coming up with shortcuts around infrastructure, around access to data. The more international collaboration we have, the faster we will reach those transformative outcomes, curing cancer. I hear a lot of these ambitious ideas, but I think you cannot do them without the collaboration around data, cross-border training, cross-border access, open source, sharing of those models, the talent development, future talent, future data, where is it going to come from? Those geographies who are lagging behind today. So we incentivize them to join this collaborative effort, and then we land with great outcomes.
Well, and that I think gets to the point of this gathering, right? That the UN is trying to foster a dialogue that is, call it geopolitically neutral, or at least geopolitical maybe, and also is commercially and technologically neutral. So how do meetings like this, and at Eurasia Group, we're of course very honored and thrilled to be working with Microsoft and G42 on this. How do gatherings like this, in particular in places like Abu Dhabi, contribute to your work and help you foster that kind of dialogue?
I'm a relative newcomer to the UN. It's been about 4 years. But I've worked a long time on multilateral forums, but also minilaterals. In fact, my academic side has been on international learning. So where, the institution, the specific instantiation of the idea changes, but, if you follow the ideas and the interests, they go through. There's an ecology of forums. We are at a turning point in many ways. It's the 80th anniversary of the UN. My senior colleague, Rebecca Greenspan, Secretary General of the UNCTAD, is there. I think we need multilateralism, and we need a multilateralism that is networked, that's more distributed, less centralized, a multilateralism that can work with multi-stakeholder approaches, and where we are relatively less rigid about particular forums or particular ways of doing things. So I'm speaking perhaps from more of a personal perspective, but I think that's the kind of agile, networked multilateralism we need, and that's why this gathering is so important. What happens in this region is so important, and it's a delight coming back to UAE, regularly and seeing how fast things are moving, and how the consciousness of, let's say, a larger responsibility is rising, not only to your own country, but also to the region and also globally. So what I'm saying is that it's not only the big powers that are going to carry forward this new type of multilateralism, but it's the smaller, let me call them smarter powers that are going to carry multilateralism forward. And that's why it's a delight being here.
Well, that's a terrific note to end on. Thank you very much, Amandeep.
My pleasure.